Welcome back, class 10, to your history class. Today, we will start revision of history because we have finished our ICSE History and Civics syllabus. But before I start revision, one chapter, Major Agencies of the United Nations. In that particular chapter, the agencies, United Nations, National Children's Emergency Fund UNICEF, World Health Organization WHO, and United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization UNESCO. In these three agencies, you just have to know the names and the full form. Okay, that is why I'm not going into the details in that chapter. Okay, now starting off with the first War of Independence, in this revision chapter, we will revise the causes: political, socio-religious, economic and military. Political causes. It was but natural that the expansion of the British dominions would cause resentment among the rulers of the native state and unrest in the country at large. Obviously, when the Britishers started expanding their territory, obviously the rulers of India and the rulers of the native states wouldn't be very glad about it. They were obviously very disturbed. Okay, and resentment was there. First is doctrine of lapse under political causes. Dalhousie was the Governor General of India from 1846 to 1856. His policy of annexations and conquest showed clearly that the territory of no Indian prince was safe. The doctrine of lapse created a sense of alarm among the ruling chiefs. The doctrine meant that, what does it mean? It meant that when a ruler of a dependent state died without a natural heir, the state passed back to the English company. If there was no natural children of a ruler, and if that ruler dies, automatically the state or the whole asset and the state of that particular king, that means particular king's kingdom, will go back to the British company. Dalhousie claimed that heirs which have been adopted without the consent, without the permission of the company, that was the East India Company, could inherit only the private property, only the palace of the deceased ruler and not his territory. The prominent states often asked in the exam, prominent states to fall victim of the doctrine were Satara, Jhansi and Nagpur. Thus, when the ruler of Jhansi died in 1853, leaving no child, the widowed Rani was pensioned. Their adopted son Anandra was not recognized as a lawful successor to the throne. This is number one, political cause. Number two political cause is discourtesy, that means disrespect, shown to the Mughal emperor. The Mughal emperor Bahadur Shah had in those days a name and a title only. His power was all taken away and he was reduced to just a name. In fact, he was not at all powerful. But even that was devalued. That was also taken away. When Lord Dalhousie announced, what did he announce? That on the death of the king, his successors, that means his children, would have to leave the imperial palace. Where was Bahadur Shah's palace? The Red Fort or the Lal Killa was Bahadur Shah's palace. Later in 1856, Lord Canning made it known that Bahadur Shah's successor could not be allowed to use imperial title, that is the title of king. That means, what did Lord Dalhousie? Lord Dalhousie went a further step and said, Lord Canning, I beg your pardon, Lord Canning went a further step and said that Bahadur Shah's son and successors were not allowed to use the title of king or Badshah. or Mughal emperor. It was a very discourtesy shown to the Mughal emperor, which hurts the sentiments of the people. Number 3, treatment meted out given to Nana Sahib. Dalhouse's refusal of pension to Nana Sahib, the adopted son of ex-Peshwa Baji Rao II. So who was Nana Sahib? Nana Sahib was Baji Rao II, his adopted son, was very much resented, not taken very in a very good manner by the Hindus in general, and Nana Sahib in particular. It is said that Nana Sahib had inherited an enormous wealth from ex-Peshwa Baji Rao II. So he spent the money in sending emissaries, that means ambassadors and people, missionaries, to different parts of the country to instigate, to provoke revolt everywhere. So this is the treatment meted out to Nana Sahib. That is why Nana Sahib took this step. Number 4 comes annexation of Awadh. On 7th February 1856, Nawab Wajid Ali Shah was deposed on grounds that Awadh was not being managed well. So what happened? It's a very important cause. Annexation of Awadh. Awadh was taken by the Britishers because they said that Nawab Wajid Ali Shah was not being able to manage Awadh properly. On February 13th, 1856, the court directors ordered Awadh's complete annexation to the company's dominions. Company totally took over the state, Awadh. The annexation of Awadh was certainly a case of high-handedness on the part of the company. The British seemed to have broken all the pledges, means promises and promises to the ruling chief, because the Britishers promised that they will not take away their kingdom. They have come for, basically East India Company came to India to do business, but later on they saw perhaps that we are fools or simpleton, and slowly they started expanding their territory, and they ruled us for 200 years and we couldn't do a thing. Anyway, this caused resentment, unhappiness, anger among the soldiers of the British Indian Army. Soldiers of the British Indian Army means the Indian people, those who worked in the British Army. So they were known as the Indians or soldiers of the British Indian Army who came from Awadh. Even the talukdars, the landowners, and the zamindars of Awadh were, even among the talukdars and zamindars of Awadh, there was a widespread dissatisfaction, unhappiness. They were not satisfied because the British had confiscated, captured, taken away their estates. Awadh played a major role in the War of 1857. Awadh played a very, very important role in the revolt of 1857. Then comes, under this political cause, is unpopular administration. There are several reasons which made British administration very, very unpopular. Number 1, people found themselves out of place with the English laws and the English language. People didn't understood the English language and they didn't understood the English law. The British officials had no knowledge of the manners, customs and habits of the people. Secondly, Indians were being excluded from all high offices in the army as well as in the administration. So Indians didn't get the chance to have a high post in any office, and even in the high post in the army, they were in a very, very low post. They were not the poor prospects of promotion. It is said that all high ranks in the army were reserved for the British only. The native sepoys, that means the Indian sepoys, could not rise above the rank of Rizaldar or Subedar. And thirdly, the British officials had a great contempt, they didn't like the Indians. Their arrogance, they're very arrogant breed of people, led them to consider that natives of India as undeserving. They did not deserve anything, undeserving human beings. So it is written in the book that their arrogance led them to consider that natives of India as undeserving the name of human beings. So they were very undeserving, they thought, because they considered themselves very superior breed of people. Now, vague and floating rumors. There were some vague rumors. And what were the rumors? There were rumors that the days of the company's rule in India were numbered. Yes. People believed that the British came to power in 1757 after the Battle of Plassey, and their rule would come to end in 1857. They were very confident that their rule will come to end in 1857 because they came to power in 1757 after the Battle of Plassey. So this is basically the political causes: doctrine of lapse, discourtesy to the Mughal emperor, treatment meted out to Nana Sahib, annexation of Awadh, unpopular administration, and the vague and floating rumors. Now, social and religious causes. Socio-religious causes. Social and religious factors were also at work in causing uneasiness among the people. Number one was fears regarding mass conversion to Christianity. The activities of the Christian missionaries created a sense of alarm. People were afraid among the Hindus and Muslims. The teaching of Christian doctrines was made compulsory in schools set up by the Christian missionaries. Whatever the school set up by the Christian missionaries, Bible and the teachings of Christ was compulsory. The Bible was introduced not only in Christian institutions but also in government schools. Not only Bible was introduced in Christian institutions but also in government schools it was introduced. Even prisoners in the jail began to be instructed in Christianity. The officials openly preached Christian doctrines in mosques and temples. A feeling of panic, they were very afraid. People were very afraid. Was rising among the people because they believed that the whole country and all the people will be converted to Christianity. Then comes laws that interfered with the religion and customs of the people. In the Act of 1850 changed the Hindu law. Hindu law was changed. Hindu law of property was changed. What did it do? It enabled the convert from Hinduism to inherit the property of his father. Previously, if a Hindu boy was converted to Christianity, converted himself to Christianity, the father could disinherit the boy from the property. The father would have refused him to give the property. But according to the new Hindu law of property in 1850, the father is bound to give the property to the son because the father cannot disinherit his son. The Hindus regarded it as an incentive, as a prize, as a gift to giving up one's religious faith. Taxes were imposed on properties of temples and mosques, which earlier had been free from all the taxes. Now, in the 19th century, the British took measures to control some of the social evils, which was basically good. The Widows' Remarriage Act passed in 1857 was a very progressive measure. Earlier, sati and female infanticide, killing the girl child, had been prohibited. In fact, reformers like Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Keshav Chandra Sen themselves attacked sati and female infanticide. They were very social reformers. Yet people did not react favorably to these measures favoring social reforms. They raised a cry that their religion was in danger because it was a custom which went on. So if you're changing a custom, and religion is a very sensitive thing, so they didn't understand. Now people, obviously, long time has passed. 1856. Now, third is introduction of railway and telegraphs. This is very interesting. The railways and telegraphs were looked down upon as means to break social order and caste rules. We are the famous for caste system, Indians are. Still it is. We are very famous. In this railway compartments, people of all castes had to sit together, which was regarded as an attempt to interfere with their caste rules. There was also a rumor that the telegraph poles would be used for hanging people, those who were against the company's rules in India, because they never saw telegraph. They never had railways before. So it was something new. Indignities hurled, insults hurled, thrown at Indians. The Englishmen in India could insult, humiliate, and even kill the Indian at the will. And English people, when they used to, besides, if an Indian was on horseback and he had to dismount and stand in respectful manner until the European has passed him. So suppose one Indian is riding a horse, an European is riding a horse. When the European people, and when both of them crossed, the Indian had to dismount himself from the horse, stand respectfully. After the European has passed, then he can move on. So such indignities alienated, means moved the Indians away from the British. The Europeans were alienated because obviously if you disrespect a certain group of people, if you disrespect people in general, if you disrespect the citizen of a country in their own country, obviously you will not be adored, adulations will not be there. Anyway, fears regarding English education. Christians missionaries had established a number of schools in British India. Gradually, the number of the government schools began to grow. In 1829, the Bengal government established an English class in Kolkata, Madrasa, which was a Muslim institution. Later, English classes were introduced in Benares Sanskrit College. They seem to have done on the face of it by the best intentions. The intention of English teaching was good, but shifting the emphasis from Oriental, that means local language learning, to Western education was not well received by people, especially the Pandits of the Sanskrit Pandits and the Maulavis. They saw it as an attempt to discourage Islamic and Hindu studies. There was also the fear that the object was not so much the promotion of literature and sciences as inducing people to become Christians. They thought that no, introducing English language was seen as a tool to introduce Christianity and an attempt to convert Indians to Christians. It was not seen as a tool or an object to promote literature and science. So with this, we come to the end of the social and religious courses, also known as socio-religious courses clubbed together. So today, from the first chapter, we have revised the political courses and the socio-religious courses. So that is the end of today's class. Thank you.